you're not. Call the meeting to order, 7 o'clock. First order on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Discussion? All right, no discussion? More under the community conversation, I believe under Mark Youngling, the last sentence, I think it was, will be discussed, not just used.
What is that?
You see, under Mark Youngling, under page 3703, community conversation. Pardon?
The name is not.
Okay, so you're correcting the spelling on his name as well?
Yeah.
Okay, and it's will be discussed later. Approval in the, under Margaret Hunt should be capitalized. I don't know if under public comment on the following page, if it was the band concert as opposed to a grand concert in the second to last line on the page. It was a grand concert, but I think we were talking about a band concert. At the bottom of 3705, under Dr. Picentro's report, I think marathon gets capitalized because it's kids marathon. That's what I've got. Anyone have anything else? All in favor as amended? Aye. Opposed? Abstention? Motion to approve payment of the invoices. Somebody?
So moved. Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Thank you. I need a motion to add a leave of absence to the agenda under new business number G.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Opposed? STPC. PTO.
Can you hear me?
Not hardly.
I'm Caroline Lopez-Lou, I'm the current president of PTO, and I figured I'd just give a recap of what we've done so far this year. At the beginning of the year, we saw a way to add value to the community. So we established a mission intending to primarily support what was happening with the school climate survey. And also we wanted to differentiate ourselves a little bit from LEF so that we could partner when appropriate and keep the lane when we kind of wanted to distinguish ourselves. So the goal of the PTO for this and the upcoming year is to continue to provide opportunities where community, school staff, parents, and caregivers come together to support each other, make each other feel valued, welcome, and included. And we want to create a culture of belonging, which we believe is important wherever possible. Kindness, acceptance, and inclusion will be promoted. We fostered a growth mindset, which was an initiative that we wanted to support with the Endorsement Center and LIS, and reinforce the good work being done with the social curriculum and assistant staff. So we did a lot of things along those ways. I'll just go through what we did so far this year. One of the biggest things that I think helped us to connect the community was we launched a new platform for communication called My School Anywhere. We still do need more families to join. Currently, we have 97 families and 160 of the 500 students. If we're able to get everybody into the system, it's going to make things so much easier for all of us. It has a place to record volunteers. It has a place to report out, create sign-ups, and communicate very effectively through email. So that's what we're working towards is getting of our community. We've also talked with Jackie Toole about eventually including middle school and high school under this one platform, because what you can do is separate out the correspondence and relevant and include everybody. And it's the whole community which will be kind of uniting and unifying and good. We've had amazing volunteer support this year, really amazing. We've had literally hundreds of volunteer contacts, and by volunteer contacts, I mean people giving up their time, talent, treasure, and of course baked goods. It's always important. We've had a lot of community building activities. We started with the September welcome event. October we did the fall family costume dinner. There are over 100 people that volunteered, including Project Purple and the Acts of Kindness Club that have been working closely with us this year. We had about 600 people at that event, which was a successful fundraiser. In November, we had Center School Book Club, Center School Book Fair, Milk and Cookies evening, and the book fair was up for an entire week. January was the Daughter Dance. We had 251 people. March was the Boys Event. We had approximately the same number, about 240. April, we did the LIS Book Fair. And next week, we're doing Teacher and Staff Appreciation Week. And we're kind of excited about that to show our gratitude for everything that staff at both schools do. There's a luncheon on Tuesday, and we're doing a shout-out board with post-its given by the community. And we have Bread donating bread, zanies, and the Rondo's family is kind enough to give a lot of great food too. Other community services we've done, Abe had suggested we include childcare during conferences, which was greatly appreciated by the community. We got a lot of great feedback that was helpful, and allowed 2 parents to attend conferences potentially, or if it was one parent, they could leave their child in the cafeteria and go to the conference without worrying about getting childcare for 15 minutes. We did fall and spring photos. Now on to what we funded. We did grants for teachers to buy supplies. We funded a trip for the LIS kids to go to Wander. We'd love to fund a movie field trip for Senator if an appropriate movie comes up. Animal Embassy, which is creating kindness through creatures, is coming on March 29th. And it's a really great program that I got to see at the library when it was there in the summer, where they bring all kinds of creatures and promote anti-bullying and not judging a book by its cover with all these complicated creatures. The buddy benches, we kind of, interestingly enough, Lindsay Baker, who's the VP of PTO, suggested that we do buddy benches. We started doing some investigation and found out that student council was already doing buddy benches funded by LIF, and Becky is in charge of that group. So we said, okay, we were going to do buddy benches at Center, you're doing them at LIS, let's just do them together. So we partnered with LIF that was our big purchase for the year. We purchased 2. And they're in, and Abe is working on the date and coordination of a big launch ribbon cutting and ceremony to, again, promote and underscore kindness and underscore and support the Second Step program. In the future events, we're launching a website soon, and we're also preparing for a welcome event next year that Jenny Terzian is going to do in cooperation with the 2 art teachers at LIS and Center to set the intention for the year. The students can choose to do work of art on growth mindset, mindfulness, kindness, empathy, or being an upstander. And then at the beginning of the year, Jenny's going to transform both pools into kind of a gallery setting, and we'll do an ice cream social and have a talent show, which should be really fun with the help of a lot of members of the community who can show us what they can do with sing, dance. So we're excited about that. So that's kind of what we've been doing for the year.
I have a quick question. In terms of your My School Anywhere and the sign up, has the school sent out, have we done like constant comments or emails to the families to encourage them to participate in that? Because if we haven't, that's something we ought to do to support you.
That would be wonderful. We've done some. We've we've done virtual backpack reminders with the link. We posted it on our Facebook site, you know, we keep posting it on our Facebook site.
Maybe a dedicated message just for that issue.
Yeah, that would be really great because truly, you know, we've had people who've never volunteered before now stepping up and volunteering and, you know, new faces, and that's what we want. We want everyone to feel, even if it's 10 minutes that they volunteer, that they're welcome.
Lynn?
Just a thought, because I know I never went in and filled in the link, and I was, you know, PTO president when we transferred to that platform. Even though I got the invite electronically too, I just never went in and did it. Maybe if we had a kiosk where parents were coming in, saying, we'll help you do it.
Sure.
Because, I don't know, I just never sat down and figured out how to get logged in, and the person who took over putting that database together, it's like, oh, you're one of the only ones, you know, you're one of the people who didn't sign up.
Yeah.
And you're
Yeah, I think
running
it's a great
this, so.
idea to put up, maybe we can do that with the old cameras.
You know, and then once you learn to do it, you'll tell your girlfriend or your
That's
your
it.
friend,
Word
like,
of
oh,
mouth,
it's so easy,
people
in
can
2
tell.
seconds.
Yeah.
Thank you. Student council. Hi.
So again, my name is Helena Wayman. So this update, the senior class has decided on a rustic garden theme for prom, and the date will be the 26th of May. The junior class is volunteering at a soup kitchen this Friday from 11:30 to 1:30, and they're also organizing a cornhole game event, which is kind of a toss and target game, on May 19th. The sophomore class is organizing a Friday fun day on May 18th from 4 to 6 p.m., which is at the community center, and we volunteer our time to help the kids out with games and spend time with them. We're going to have a joint car wash and tag sale May 19th at the Litchfield Firehouse from 4 to 6 p.m. We are organizing a middle school student council, or middle school dance, in conjunction with the freshman student council on May 25th, which is a Friday at 7 p.m. And we are also coordinating a movie night with the freshmen and our Future Business Leaders of America Club, or FBLA, which we haven't decided a date for. And we had a successful bake sale recently at the Litchfield Stop and Shop for our first prom committee fundraiser, and we raised $500.01. The freshman class, like I mentioned before, is organizing with us both a middle school dance and a movie night. Specific clubs, AOK, so our Acts of Kindness Club, is hosting an ice cream social at Advance this Friday at 6:30. And they had another cast of characters event today, which is always really fun to see. The Torch, as I think we passed around here, released its 3rd issue of the year recently. And in terms of sports, both our tennis teams are currently undefeated, although there was a tennis match today against Chicago. I don't know yet what the results of that look like. Thank you.
Thank you. You can stay, or if you need to do homework, you're free to go.
Yeah,
Just so you-
We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. Litchfield Prevention Council. Litchfield Education Foundation. Other public comment. We have 3. All right, Eric? Eric Marriott?
I just wanted to see if there was any discussion regarding the outgoing swim coach, Christine Harden. She will be sorely missed. The students and the swimmers and the parents all loved her. I don't know why she left. I'm hoping that it's not anything bad, but my understanding is that there's an opening. So I'm not sure if that's up to the Board of Ed in terms of having any impact on the hiring, obviously. But if the school could just really take a look at trying to bring somebody in that had the same background. She was a very professional swimmer. She swam in college. And she, you know, like I said, she was just great with the kids, great with the parents. She was very active outside of the swim meets, whether it was fundraising or having, you know, social gatherings for the team. So, like I said, I'm not sure why she left, but you know, hopefully the school can take a good look and try to bring somebody in that is comparable to her background. That's it.
Appreciate the kind words you said about her, and I know that we have new ways of hiring or looking at coaches, so those will get implemented, and hopefully we'll get the best person out there.
Thank you.
Becky Stoll?
Hi, I'm just here on behalf of Litchfield Intermediate School Student Council. We just relaunched it this year. It hasn't been happening in, I don't know how many years, it's been a long time. So I actually wanted to officially thank Litchfield Education Foundation because they funded our buddy bench, which did arrive today, and we have it on our playground. They also funded the materials for a picnic table to have on the playground, because lots of times kids don't want to play soccer or basketball or foursquare, and they're sitting on hard ground coloring or drawing. So student council decided that we would get a picnic table. I have actually looked to the local builder, Gary Gilman, who I want to thank tremendously, because he built the bench for us and he built the picnic table for us, all with his skill, and didn't charge us for time or labor, just for the materials. So I wanted to thank LEF and Gary Gilman for that tremendously. So they arrived today, so they're there. We are going to have an official ribbon cutting ceremony later in the year, probably when Dr. Pacento is feeling a little better and he's back. And we'll let you know when that is, because it would be great to see as many of you there as we can. So we've been really busy all year, but we have actually just wanted to really thank you guys for that.
Thank you. All right. Jackie Toole? You're free.
Read it last.
Okay, so Jackie texted me and asked me if I could read her comment. She was unable to be here.
What lobby, please?
Okay, Jackie asked me if I could read her comment because she was unable to be here. And she says the following. My thoughts are that research may show that for intermediate age, class size may not matter as much. But I would like the teachers and administrators on board to look carefully at this third grade class going into fourth. Are they a class that could do fine combined into 3 classes? Are there a high number of kids who may need the extra attention that our teachers are wonderful at giving? I just request that we look carefully before this is decided, because the numbers we can eliminate in a class in a grade may have significant impact. We need to look closely at the individuals who make up that grade, and with larger class sizes, only 3 class sizes in which we place the children work for this grade in particular. I know my own daughter does much better in smaller groups, and I'm afraid she would get lost in the crowd. Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
Matt?
I know Dr. Pacento is back in about 2 weeks. Do you know if he's going to read that copy for the parents? I know there was going to share about a copy for the parents. Mike. I call him Dr. Mike. He's back in 2 weeks, right? In time to maybe get a copy to start talking to parents.
Yeah, maybe, I imagine it will kind of come with his end of the year schedule.
I know a lot of parents are excited.
Other public comment? Sure.
This is going to be strange. My name is Ed Peruta, and I have an organization over in Harwinton called American News, and we've made a commitment to attempt to transmit your Board of Education meetings and other public meetings in town live when possible through the use of the internet. I know that there's some people that are watching this right now who are getting comments that it's choppy and it's digitized because of the signal in this room trying to get out to the internet. But I just want to let you know that we have made a commitment to attempt to do it. Every time you meet, we're going to try to be here. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you. And perhaps if you could send the link to us, we could post it on the website so that people who wanted to watch have the ability to do
Well, I can tell you, it's up on YouTube at a channel called Litchfield BOE. And your last meeting was put up there. And this meeting is right now transmitting live as we speak. There's probably a 20-second delay. but we're also recording it in high definition so that we're going to be able to say, this was live, this is what it could look like. And I'm not trying to put anybody on the spot, but any assistance we can have trying to get a better signal out of here, or wherever you meet, or the finance committee meets, or the board of selectmen meets in this community, I'm going to try and make a difference in Litchfield.
Thank you. And so is the live feed also on the YouTube channel?
Right now, as we speak, it's there right now.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Correspondence?
Yes. I have thank you notes for the flowers for Administrative Professionals Day, so it's been that way. And I think you all received an email this afternoon from Diane Wilson about a survey program review at Center School. I think it's about it. 1:30.
There's questions.
I didn't get a chance to come back on that, but 5:30.
Yeah. I don't know where there were 8 today.
Yeah.
All right, so Stephanie's out sick. Mike is also out sick. So cuts administrators reports down by 30%. Abe, how about we start at your end, work our way around.
Just a few thank yous. I'd like to thank Andy Parker for organizing our annual ACES event. All children exercise simultaneously. We held the event today. It was a beautiful day to hold the event. All the children, all the staff at Center School participated in exercising with millions and millions of students across the country. Thank you to the Acts of Kindness Club for coming down and promoting the ice cream social this Friday. Our younger kids really enjoyed seeing their older peers dressed up in costume and interacting with them. So thank you again to Kristen and Kathy and the Acts of Kindness Club. Thank you to Caroline and PTO for all their support this year. It's been a wonderful partnership, and we continue to look forward to continuing our partnership for next year. And kindergarten orientation is next Wednesday, May 9th. We currently have 37 students and families participating.
And will PTO be at that?
Yes.
So maybe you can get those 37 people signed up right then and there. Julie?
Other than working through the busiest time of the year with transition for students, I'm completing the IDEA grant. With the assistance of David, there's a little bit of a new process this year, so thank you to David for assisting with that. And other than that new news, that's really all I have to report.
David?
I got a couple things to talk about. Let's see, Board of Ed capital projects through the town of Litchfield. As you recall, there was $400,000 appropriated. The bids have started coming in. So we've received one for the HVAC at Center School. We estimated it at $38,500. It was actually about $43,500, so it was over budget. We're hoping that gets approved. The difference had to do with wiring, and as I just found out today, our old one doesn't fire up right now. So we're very optimistic that it'll get approved. With regards to stair treads, this is at the intermediate school. We had estimated $25,000. The bid actually came in at $16,500, so $8,500 to the positive. We're hoping they reappropriate it. It's now waiting for Board of Selectmen approval. You have a flyer in front of you with the E-rate grant update. I wanted to share this because I haven't really put a lot of attention on it the last couple of years. Jamie Carey has led the charge in the district to get as much funding as we can through a federal program called E-rate. This year we were funded $67,000. So that's offsets cost of technology within our operating budget. This is a really good thing. It's roughly funded at about 45% on average. Different levels are at different rates. So I just really wanted to give some credit to Jamie and the hard work she's done on that side. We use a service called E-rate Online to assist with the actual filing of it. But Jamie does a lot of work behind the scenes to get that accomplished every year. So thank you to her. Wanted to remind the Board of Ed, we've been on a spending freeze for about a month. The goal was to ensure we don't finish the fiscal year in a deficit over the next 2 months. Items that were approved in the budget and other higher priority items will be approved if funds allow. As we get closer to the end of the year, we'll have better projections on what we're looking at. So this is always a challenging time of year as we're coming to the end of the fiscal year. I was going to talk about the IDEA grant, which Julie mentioned that already. Middle school, high school teaching devices. I just want to give a little background in case you haven't heard already. 4 years ago, because of challenges with the one-to-one program rollout, we allowed teachers in the middle school, high school to keep a secondary device in the classroom. This year, it was removed from the current year budget. Sherry and I took time to meet with the staff last week and followed up with the union this week to talk about that decision. We are going to allow teachers that rely on these devices to use secondary devices until the end of next year. We don't anticipate that's a lot of people. We're thinking it's probably under 5. Teachers will also be able to check out loaner devices for PPTs if needed. We're planning on replacing primary devices in the classroom this year as part of the capital improvement plan. We talked about this at length in January and February during the facilities and technology meetings in the 5-year plan.
What's a secondary device?
So a desktop and a laptop.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's the right terminology. They're both primary devices, I guess. It depends on how the teacher uses them. So maybe I'm struggling a little bit with secondary device, but there's 2 devices, and we're going to limit that to 1. Green team. So for the new members of the board, just to refresh, a member of the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen, the Board of Ed, and a couple of community members at large sit on a group of citizens dedicated to looking at energy efficiencies within the town and in the schools. We've been meeting about once a quarter lately. We met yesterday. Len was invited to attend to speak about suggestions on how to be more energy efficient with regards to oil usage. Oil, even though it's maybe 60-70% of our cost of utilities, it provides 90% of our kBTUs within the buildings. So that's our primary heating source. So being more efficient with oil is important. So we had a long conversation about the best way to do that and different measures we're going to implement going forward. We also looked at the VW settlement to add electric vehicle charging stations around town and possibly at schools. So VW lost a fairly large lawsuit to the federal government, and there are some funds hopefully trickling down to Connecticut and specifically could be earmarked to Litchfield. So we're looking into that opportunity as well. We are working on the next update to the energy trend analysis. If you recall, John Post presented this board in the fall to talk about the energy trends going forward. We're not going to present, but we'll have that for a addendum shortly for the next 6 months, and we'll continue that process going forward. Food and custodial services, we hired a sub, a building sub to fill a vacant custodial spot recently. We have also started to rebuild our sub-custodial pool. As we build our pool, this actually provides savings to us over summer because we outsource subs or custodians to a third-party company. If we hire staff ourselves as subs, we actually save money for the same amount of work. So that it encourages us to be aggressive with our hiring and thoughtful. Len had, and I think Len will probably talk about this, Len had a nice presentation at FMT talking about the 42 business days of summer to get all that long laundry list of capital projects accomplished. That was repeated the FMT meeting. 2 other things, safety tip email tip line. I was asked to reiterate, we now have a safety email address that can be used to report unsafe building conditions or unsafe bus driving conditions. Our website was updated to highlight the bus routes, the bus safety, and safety tip line. So if you look under the central office, you will see those pretty predominantly. And lastly, on a personal note, I was recently nominated by my peers to be on the board of directors for the Connecticut Association of Business Managers. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. That's it. Sure.
Now, how much are we approximately saving by taking away the second devices? Like, what was the savings?
So we talked about this in FMT in January.
Yeah.
There's a lot of factors that go into it. A laptop device typically is refreshed every 4 years, where a desktop device is 6 to 7. Laptop devices are typically a little bit more expensive, so it's a refresh cycle. So there's that component of it. It depends on how you look at it, but I factored it's anywhere, if you look at an annualized cost, and you look over the life expectancy of those devices, 7 years, 4 years, about $15,000 a year, every year. But it goes with the overall theme of reducing our budget. So this is one of the preliminary conversations we had as a budget development. Before we started talking about personnel cuts, we thought secondary devices, even though it is impactful to teachers, we thought it was less impactful than not having a teacher.
15. I just want to know.
No, it's going with the theme of getting technology and all the other program budgets down before other areas. But it was a good conversation at F&T. There was a presentation made in January and followed up again in February.
How many more years till we actually see the reduction in the electric bill from the changes we made?
That was a 48-month loan. We're about 21 months into it. So 27 more payments. If funds allow, at the end of fiscal year, we can always pay more towards loans and pay off early if possible. It just depends. Obviously, it's good to pay off notes in advance if you can, but at what cost? So 27 months.
And then there'll be, what's that, an extra $100,000 a year in the
It
budget?
depends. I mean, there's definitely factors that fall into that, the energy rate, and we talked about that at the time. It's not just a $100,000 savings, which is a realistic estimate. It's the savings, it's the cost of what it would have cost by not doing that. So the usage has reduced roughly 30% for electricity. So whatever that rate is in 3 years or 4 years, when that note's paid off, times a reduction of 30%. So, but we are excited that we're moving towards that. We're making payments every month, and we'll continue to do that.
Kristen?
Good evening. First, this week we celebrated the Professional Assistance Appreciation Day, and I just wanted to give a direct and poignant thank you to Tammy Knox, Kathy Johnson, and Lynn Mongoose, who are paid individuals who come in every day and operate with the utmost professionalism, caring about our kids as if they were their own, and taking the job as seriously as anyone else who's in the building. We couldn't really do a great majority of our work with as much confidence and composure were it not for the three of you. And I feel that way about also any of the assistants that are working in the other buildings. They're also very helpful and supportive. A former graduate, Chelsea Knox, was honored by earning and being appointed as the principal flutist for the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra, which is an amazing, tremendous, beyond accomplishment. She happened to be in the area and stopped by and did a workshop for our students. And, you know, if you were in the cafeteria before 20 minutes to 11, it was wonderful, fantastic. Shortly after that, they started heating up lunch, and it was a different environment. But it was pretty amazing. And it just gets me thinking about experiences I know in other high schools throughout the state. You know, we have a Grammy Award-winning musician who comes and composes music with our students, and we have a graduate who has an experience like this. There's something very magical and special that's happening. It's wonderful that we can benefit from that. Ms. Gazzafava has been working very hard this year to bring life back into our school to career program, and is once again doing an installment with one of our alum speakers. This is Matt Gallagher. I'm going to pull up my notes for this. Matt Gallagher, who's going to be coming and speaking to our students about his journey in the world of finance as a former LHS grad. And she's also organized a trip that is being co-sponsored with Northwest Connecticut Chamber of Commerce and the Connecticut Department of Labor Office, and apprenticeship training, and they're taking students from local areas to visit local manufacturing facilities. So thank you, Lynn, for taking the time to organize that for our kids.
Healthy food certification. How are you? I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. It's that time of the year where we have to decide if we're going to participate again in the healthy food certification. We need to decide on both, one being part of the program, and two, deciding whether or not we want to be exempt from after-school events, and anything not during the school day, fundraisers, things like that. So with the healthy food certification, right now, we serve healthy snacks in the cafeteria, which gives us a 10-cent reimbursement for each meal we sell. And the exemption works really well for the after-school events and for the, ice cream socials and all of that stuff. So we need to decide if, yes, we are going to participate again, and if we want to be exempt, or if we want to say, yes, we want to be healthy all the time.
Is there any advantage to not continue to do things the way we currently do them?
I don't see that, no, because participating in the program does give us that 10-cent reimbursement for every meal. It's not on the snack, it's on every meal that we sell. And they are good products. I mean, they are the healthier alternative to, your potato chips, your cookies, and things. So you'll see that you have a little handout, they figured them out for me. So we need to vote on both of them, and the meeting minutes have to reflect that we decided to participate, and either we want to be exempt or we don't want to be exempt. My suggestion would be to participate and to participate in the exemption.
Okay, so somebody want to make?
I'd like to make a motion to participate and be exempt. Second.
And do we need to read it into the record, or?
We can only do one at a time. You can't do both at the same time.
All right, so Matt, we have it here in front of you, the healthy food service, the two motions, so if you just read it into the record, please?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to implement the healthy food option. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions? Objections? Motion passes.
I'd like to make a motion to allow food exemptions. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Exemptions or objections? Abstentions? Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, the intermediate school vision statement that we were going to have from Dr. Vicento is going over to the June 6th board meeting because we don't have Dr. Vicento.
He did do well with the surgery, just to let you know.
Oh, he did have, I thought it was Friday.
No, today.
Oh, good.
He did well, he's home.
Excellent. Excellent.
I sent him a picture of the meeting, so.
He's watching it right now.
I'd wager on that. Okay, center school survey program review. Correct proposal. I think there was an email on this. So Sherry, you want to read this?
You want a motion?
Well, let's get the paperwork out.
Does everyone, I have extra copies if people don't have that.
I didn't bring mine for us, so, I guess I'm not the only one who didn't bring it. Instead, I brought somebody else's motion.
Okay, as I have been communicating with you over the past couple of months, the request was made to put out to get proposals for a survey program review at center school. I did get 3 proposals. They were presented to CPP right before vacation, and the committee recommended to go with Craig's proposal, which you have in front of you. They are proposing to have 2 people come. I've been in contact with Alicia, one of the consultants from Craig, who they have tentatively penciled us in for June 11th. They will spend a day here, and then as you can read in the proposal, they will spend a day putting their results together, and then they will present it. So I think that having 2 people in the correct proposal, one of them is a literacy specialist and also has a special education background. And the other consultant is an intervention specialist. I think they both have really great backgrounds to do this. Craig did our tech audit. They do a very good job, and I think that they will be able to do what we need them to do to come back with some recommendations for us. I'm excited about that to see what they think about what we're doing and some, maybe perhaps some next steps for us moving forward to help kids.
And this was the most comprehensive of the
It
three
is,
proposals?
yes.
So I need before we get to discussion, I need a motion and a
So
second.
moved.
Second.
Okay. Questions?
Dave, we got the money? I'm just asking, I know it's a great idea to do it, I'm just saying we got the money.
What I would tell you if you're an administrator is that right now we're on a spending freeze until we're closer to the end of the year, and I have a better idea of how much we may or may not have available. If we can fund it, I would love to fund it, but I can't give you a definitive answer at this time.
Will you know at June 11th, which is closer to the end of the year?
Yeah, I should have a really good idea by mid-June. I mean, typically mid-June, we'll have a last main payroll out, and we'll have a pretty good idea of where chips fall. The last 2 weeks in June is where we start looking at items that were either frozen, that were funded, or items that weren't funded at all, like this.
Wayne?
If we're talking around June 11th, and the situation requires it, why not just take care of it with next year's budget? You know, at that point, we should, you know, where we are, and when we've got a full year in front of us, maybe it's easier to absorb it then, or split it over the 2 years.
When is the service being performed?
They are coming here June 11th if the board approves it. And then I'll have to talk to them about the turnaround time for that.
So if they come and observe on June 11th, but don't deliver their report until July or August, then it would straddle 2 years, right?
And in that case, you could make a case that we could get funded out of next year. But if all the services were done and completed on June 11th, I would highly recommend funding it in the current year because that's appropriate.
I'm just suggesting that there might be some flexibility there to shift it one way or the other, or split it depending upon the abilities. And the other thing I wanted to say or ask, just generally speaking, is I have no problem doing it if it's needed and so forth. But what I do wonder about a little bit is, has this, where's this come from? Meaning, have our scores fallen off over the past 2 or 3 years? In other words, I've been under the impression for quite a long time that our, reading, writing programs were doing pretty well, and our kids were scoring pretty well, and so on and so forth. So I'm wondering, and I don't need an answer for this at the moment, but I'm wondering at some point what happened and when. Meaning, why all of a sudden do we need a consultant? I thought, we've had people in place for a number of years. I don't think there's been turnover. I think the performance has been pretty good unless I'm missing something. So I would pose the question at some point to try to understand a little more of what happened rather than just saying, okay, let's go out and hire somebody to come in. And I think we have a lot of people that are, isn't there a new endorsement educationally for reading specialists, or is that reading, writing, Sherry? There's something that was coming in over the past year or so where, like going forward, if somebody was going to be a language arts coordinator, they were going to have a certain certification that was relatively new. Is that the kind of expertise that would evaluate this kind of program and the validity or success or not of it? Yes?
Yes, so and that's been going on for even longer than that, Wayne. I think what the new law was trying to propose a few years ago was anyone working with students in intervention, the state had proposed that they would have to have an 097 or a 102. And that never came to fruition. However, if you're going to be a consultant, you have to have the 097, and a 102 is the remedial reading certification.
Okay.
We have 2 people currently at center school that have that.
Okay.
Both of those
That have been
certifications.
trained?
Yes.
Okay. And it's no longer, is it still reading recovery per se, or is it Columbia, or is it a combination thereof? Or?
So the program that the methodology that's used here at center school and now at the intermediate school is through Teachers College, Columbia, which is the reading and writing workshop. That's for teaching reading and writing K through 6. The Reader Recovery Program, our early intervention program, is modeled after that. So as a reader recovery teacher myself, and using someone who was a past reader recovery teacher, I trained some of our interventionists in center school. So there's really two separate things. There's the reading program, that reading and writing language arts, that's delivered K through 6, is different than the STORI program, which is the intervention part.
Lynn, next?
Yes.
Well, Lynn first, then you, sorry.
So I guess number one, I want to talk, just comment on $4,000. I think this should be a board imperative, top priority, where and when. I mean, it's basically, I would say, comes from the community. One of the, just even based on my research, talking to a lot of different people in education, is that Columbia doesn't support phonics, and that seems to be a weakness in our program. It's hard to tell unless we have the audit to see where our weaknesses and strengths are. So this will be completely comprehensive and identify what we need to do moving forward. But for me, this $4,000 is absolutely imperative. It would be hard for us to move forward without getting this done.
John?
If the program was being criticized in any way, I think by doing this, we'll see what we're doing, and it could validate what we're doing. And I think that's just as important as looking at making corrections. It can validate what you're doing. If it doesn't validate it, then you have to take action.
Frank?
I don't have a problem spending money, that's not what I'm saying, I'm just saying, I don't want David to come back to us on July 1st and say, we're $8,000 in the hole. If we can afford it, let's do it. If we did, couldn't they invoice us in July? We did the service in June? Why can't they invoice us in July?
Well, sure, we've had long conversations over the last 3 months about budget for next year, and programs that have been reduced, and stipends that have been reduced, and summer programs that have been put back in. And those are long conversations over a few $1,000s, so I think that's important to consider. Are we going to have a variance? Yeah, there's absolutely every possibility we have the funding in this current year, at the end of the year, to cover this. Can I tell you right now, definitively, I can't.
But if we invoice it in July, we know we would make sure. Just saying, I don't care.
Matt?
I don't care if we have to have a bake sale or garage sale to get the money. This is very important. Like you always said, I've always been told from the beginning, the students come first. And if one student gets left behind or 5, this is unbelievably imperative. So that's how I feel.
Just so you know, by statute, if the board overruns its budget, you need
I know.
to be personally
I'll go put
liable.
finance last year.
So we may be doing a bake sale if we do it.
This is important. These students are worth it, so we need to do this, in my opinion.
I know you can make you a state champion, John.
David, take care of it.
What I was going to point out is we have a finance subcommittee meeting coming up on Monday. We have another board meeting coming up in the middle of the month. We have another finance subcommittee meeting coming up the first Monday before the June 6th board meeting. We have the chance to review our finances a lot tighter, a lot closer, and to come back to the board with a more diligent presentation to say, pull your wallets out, or we're all good. So unless we absolutely need a decision right tonight, I'd say the decision of the board is let's keep it on the calendar, or I'm not saying the decision, but you keep it on the calendar and we look at it closer to that time.
Dave?
How does it bumping it down in terms of decision, how does that affect the scheduling?
Yeah.
It's not like they're going to come in tomorrow or the next day.
So
They have their own.
They do,
Yeah.
and my understanding is that, their schedules fill up fast, as you can imagine. So if I don't have approval tonight for sure, I would say they probably wouldn't be able to come in June, it would have to be next year. Because our next board meeting is not till June 6th.
Can't.
I don't want to mislead the board. I think that there's a chance, a very good chance, we'll end the year with enough money to cover this program. I just can't definitively say right now.
Well, let me ask you this. Can we cover 2,000 of it this year, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we've ever had a year where we returned less than 2,000 to town, so I think it's a realistic possibility, but again, in general, what I've been telling the administration, we're on a freeze right now, but, I mean,
We can arrange to not get the report till
right, I mean, there's other
so
projects we
that's
can
the proper strategy.
unfund for like the first 2 months if we need. If this is such a priority, there's other things I can unfund.
Yeah.
Doesn't that quote say 2 days?
Who says on them? Wayne?
That's 2 days.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we reduced the school year by a day. Maybe there's some bus runs, maybe there are some, whatever things that we might, pick up by not having that extra day that might go towards this.
That's a good point.
I mean, I don't recall the hot bus contract.
I mean, it goes both ways. I mean, things definitely will go in our favor, and things that probably go against us. Last week, we lost another.
Lynn?
So even hearing about an oven, because when we were talking about the maintenance, can't we just approve this today, and then if we can unfund something else, that discussion, whatever we're gonna unfund, because this, for me, for curriculum, for student achievement, is imperative that this gets done, as well as some other things in curriculum. And, the oven needs to be fixed, but honestly, serve full lunches for the rest of the year. That's where I am. I mean, the buses, the exterior maintenance and maintenance of these buildings cannot come at the expense of student achievement.
Brian?
Can't you just say hold the spot, and you have, like he says, have a finance meeting on Monday? When they want the money up front?
They want to pay.
Well, I'm not saying you're not gonna get paid.
Well, what if I come back to them later and say no, they say no, and now they've lost out on some other districts that might want them to work for them? I just don't think it's fair.
Oh, well.
No, because ultimately we're gonna want the service, it's just a matter of when we can afford to pay
The
for
motion's
it.
on the table, if they wanna do it, I hope you come up, try to get the money on Monday. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, but I don't think you get to just unfund things, I don't think you get to decide that kids eat just cold food so that you can do an evaluation.
Yeah, because how do you determine what you're gonna unfund? However, though, that being said, this isn't like this is the first time we've talked about this. We've been talking about this at least 2 curriculum meetings, so it's really something we on the curriculum committee feel needs to be done. And it's our job as a subcommittee to make a recommendation to the board. I think we should do it.
I'd like to call the question.
Can I just make one more comment?
Absolutely.
I just want to clarify something. If you look at the proposal, I think we're talking about perhaps 2 different things. So the proposal is literacy program review for grades K through 3, specifically focusing on literacy intervention instruction and progress monitoring behaviors, and the survey process review for grades K through 3 using CREC's MTSS checklist. This review will specifically look at sample survey documentation, records to assess processes, instruction, and data collection. So we're talking Columbia and writing and reading workshop is separate from what this proposal is. And Columbia Teachers College does teach phonics, and we do have phonics at center school. It was not here before I came. Again, I'm not saying that it was never taught here, it just was not for a long time. So it is something that is being taught. I just want to put that on the record because I think there's been lots of confusion about that. But I just want people to pay attention to specifically what's in the proposal.
In regard to the proposal, do you think that it is comprehensive enough?
I do, because my understanding is that we're talking about survey intervention, not classroom teacher instruction in language arts.
So there being no more discussion, question's been called, all in favor?
Aye.
Nays? Abstention? Motion carries. But if you want to discuss it on the finance committee,
that's
Is a
enough.
recommendation as to how to
I'll
address
just,
it?
I'll include it as a projection as whatever.
Oh, that's enough. I already do it.
And encumbrance.
Well,
There you go.
If we have to go in front of the board of finance, I'll go. You're gonna sell cookies, you said. I'll sell cookies. You say you're doing a bake sale.
Isn't that what we said, it's on the record?
yeah.
I was doing a bake sale.
I'll do it in the dog.
Matter of fact, I'll give you that.
I will do whatever it takes.
We're covered in bake sale,
Okay.
live.
Shared
We'll
cost
do an
grant
infomercial.
for the music program. Who's doing that?
Well. Yeah, I didn't, well, John to do it?
I mean, it was. The way I understood, I would be happy to help them write the grant, but after, this was at the FMG meeting the other night, but they were supposed to get in touch with me,
And that's not happening.
and that has not happened. I actually, so I haven't, I've actually researched what Cerritos, I think Cerritos funded about 45% of 2 grant applications that were done, I want to say 98, 99. So I think they spent something like 45 grand, give or take, on a $96,000 application. That's the history of it. I'd be shocked if anybody else in the Cerritos organization knew about that, because I found it in a way, buried files someplace. But, I think we could certainly come back and tell them.
Right here, yeah.
Would you like to come up and
Yeah,
tell us?
yeah, sorry,
where
because
you
we
are?
thought, so, Jill and I are on music parents, Mr. Corey and Mr. Perkins are coaching teams. But we went to the technology facilities meeting to propose the idea that the Board of Ed write a grant. We as music parents would love to support that. We can't write the grant ourselves because we would not be owning the equipment. But so we went and proposed and talked about our equipment and how our equipment for our bands are really hitting their max. They're nearly 20 years old. We're actually, the way this started is requests were coming to music parents to fix, repair instruments, and we started just asking the questions of like, well, why so many repairs? And that's how it came up that, oh, well, the instruments are getting so old, there are lots more repairs, and that's where we as music parents said, well, what can we do about this? Should this be brought to the attention of the superintendent and the Board of Ed? We didn't know if it went through capital, but we wanted to bring it to everybody's attention. So that's sort of how we got involved with that. So when we went to, it's about, what do we say, $100,000 worth of equipment. And also the risers for the chorus are very old as well. And those will need to be replaced soon. So we wanted to bring it to the Board of Ed's attention. We wrote a letter a couple of months ago to bring it to your attention. After that meeting, Frank sent an email saying, have you looked at the Cerritos grant? So that's when we said, well, let's go to the finance meeting to discuss this, because if it's from the Cerritos Foundation, that grant request has to come from the schools. Again, like I said, because we don't own the equipment. So we wanted, I guess, for the board to approve for John or a designated person, or John to work with us to write the grant, but have it submitted prior to September 15th with the Board of Ed approval. I believe the last Cerritos grant was approved, a motion was made from the whole board, correct, John? To approve that grant. So that's why we're coming to the full board, is to get your support, your approval. So if we do this work with John to write the grant, and also just to put it on your radar that if we don't get the grant, we hope that the Board of Ed, the Finance Committee, can think about some long-term planning as to how we go about replacing these instruments. Is it, we put $20,000 in the budget each year. Jill, why don't you talk a little bit about, you want to talk a little about the accomplishments of the music program, why the instruments are important? Or?
Sure. Well, Jody and I are both here as parents of musicians, and
and I know that the board is aware of the many accomplishments, some were spoken of tonight, of Litchfield students. Last week we had the All-State concert, and there were 4 musicians from Litchfield High School representing that. We've had 2 students this year who went to nationals, and in past years as well. And students who are pursuing music as a career in the future. And for such a small high school, we really have a very accomplished music program that people from around the state and the country are commenting on. So we would really appreciate your support, continued support of our music program. And we need good instruments to continue our program.
Some of these instruments too, they allow students to play instruments they could never afford. Others or they're big instruments, like a set of, I don't even know what they're called. Timpanis, they're like $10,000.
Baritone sax.
Tubas, which are very expensive. So, but I guess, so I guess in brief, I'm never brief, but, so we're asking for today, I guess, is a discussion on your part to just see if you are okay with us working with John. And then once we finish writing the grant, to be put on your agenda, I suppose for July or August, I don't even know if we have meetings in August, to actually approve the grant so that we can submit it.
Okay, so we need a motion to authorize Jody and Jill to work with the board's approval, to write a grant to share costs to get us to purchase new instruments for the Litchfield schools.
So moved.
Second.
Wayne?
When you asked for discussion, I had a question or something
Go
I
ahead.
mentioned. I think though that we want to, I'm assuming that Mr. Bory would probably be writing a large portion of it along with the ladies.
Yes.
But I think typically as per, the outline of board responsibilities, I don't want John to feel like he's expected to be a grant writer, in terms of guidance and.
I'm happy to be an advisor to a grant writing process.
Okay, so that's fine. I just thought it was fair to point that out.
Yeah, no,
Didn't expect
we're
you.
not delegating it to you. You kind of volunteered.
They
But
tried.
the board also needs
That was
to
fun.
realize that if we get the new instruments, we have an obligation to maintain them, and like we do and build into our budget for technology replacement, we need to do the same thing on the instruments, because this is the second time we've gone to this, to share costs, asking for help with instruments, and we haven't invested the money to purchase more on a regular basis as they wear out. So, going forward, with your 6-year term staggered, to make sure you carry that torch going forward, so that the kids always have the instruments they need.
That should also come from, what's it called, the
From
budget.
Mr. Board.
From his budget, too, it should be put in the budget, so.
To Kristen, to Sherry, to the board.
And
Ultimately, the buck stops with the board.
one point that David brought up the other night, which is these are in essence capital items.
Correct.
They last more than 10 years and they cost more than $10,000. So that may very well be something that we can work with on capital, from a capital committee, capital replacement side as well.
I would agree with that. I've seen software in my capital budget.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? All right.
Thank you.
Happy writing, thank you. Okay, ad hoc committee update on technology. You have in your packet, this committee's been reconfigured. It's hopefully going to be on a fast track, and it's looking at just the educational pieces of technology. Dr. Benzoni has agreed to sit on the committee to provide that developmental piece for that, and it is hoped that you guys will be done by winter break. I really want to get it done and the recommendations implemented, and Danny's agreed to chair it, so thank you to Danny. Lynn?
I know Jamie had mentioned that she was going to check with Ed Advance, because a lot of this information, it actually came up at the Ed Advance meeting, a lot of this is documented, research, that it in advance does have some of the information, so I would just step
Well,
one.
she's on the committee, so she can bring it in, what she knows exists over there, she
Okay.
certainly can bring in.
But I wouldn't start from square one until I thoroughly scour it in advance, just so you're not reinventing the wheel.
And you can do an organizational meeting. So just to update you on that, that's where we are. And then Wayne's gonna undertake and go through on the hardware side and software side to make sure that what we need ultimately we have. May 16th, we have a Board of Education retreat. Is that gonna be at Ed Advance?
Yes.
It's going to be at Ed Advance, it's gonna be at 7 o'clock. Nick is going to come work with us to help us resolve whatever the current issues are within the board and educate us in terms of what we need to do going forward. And Sherry will also be there because as the CEO of the board, she needs to have those open lines of communication with us, and if there are any issues there, they need to be resolved then too. Lynn?
Just FYI, I will not be there at the travel for work.
That could be a problem. Okay.
And I think it's important that we all go.
Yeah.
I think all nine should be there.
Pardon?
I think all nine of us should be there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, pardon, we'll have to schedule it.
Will we have a regular meeting that night?
We will have a regular meeting, but the board retreat, everybody needs to be present for.
Yes, all right, I just found out you know that mandatory.
Or is everybody going to be around for the second meeting in June? Well, we have to coordinate that. Can people, Lynn, you're the one who travels the most, if you could let Sherry know your travel schedule so that we're clear that everybody will be there.
I am not at the June 20th.
Okay.
What did you say, John?
I said I will not be at the June 20th.
Well, you know what, maybe we'll schedule it as a special meeting then.
Okay.
Let's find
Yes, the
find
6th
another
of
date,
July.
and schedule a special meeting. Maybe we can put up, I forget what those things are called, where,
Look at your calendars now, so you know what you do.
yeah, where you put out a bunch of dates and everybody goes and we'll figure it out. Can you know how to do that?
Survey, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Wayne?
Want to make a comment about this because we discussed it a little bit, and I think it's an important point to make. I don't think anybody is interested in going to the retreat to talk behind the superintendent's back. Okay? However, I do think, even if you do it as a two-part meeting, I think there is definitely a useful purpose for having just the board members together to have a frank and open conversation about conduct and direction and procedures. And, you know, there's a lot of conversation about, geez, guys, I think we should go this deep into a topic or an issue. And others are saying, no, that's overstepping the bounds. I think there's a purpose. I did a little research on it, and it's not uncommon, but I think it's a good idea to have an opportunity, because board members never get a chance, I don't want to get into the whole bonding thing and all that, but board members never really have a chance to get to know each other and to kind of put it out there how they feel. And I think it's important that they have that opportunity somewhere along the way. And I just wanted to say that, as to whether it's part of that meeting or, part A, part B or whatever, but I think that's what we need more than anything else, is to have that conversation. Does the person from Cape need to be there? I don't think so. Probably more appropriate in my mind that board council be there, but, either way, I'm okay with that, but I think the board needs some time.
Okay. Leave of absence.
Second.
So this is a leave of absence to allow maternity leave for Caitlin Johnson.
Yes, she's a grade 4 teacher at the Litchfield school. Her baby's due in August, and she would like to take the rest of the school off.
Wait a second. rest of what, so
Next
she
Next year.
missed the entire school
Yes.
year?
Yes.
Done it before, Joe.
I know we usually do it when somebody happens. I know I struggle with this every time.
We all,
When you have the baby in the summer, then to take the whole school year off is, that's a,
Will be a substitute that filled in, or was it?
well, we did a motion, right, we're talking about it now.
yes. The motion in a second.
We talk about this every
Second.
year.
Are we all set with the second?
Yeah.
So now we're on to discussion.
First question, is maternity leave 12 or 6?
Under the-
Family medical is 12, but maternity, I
Family
thought was
medical
6.
is a federal law, it guarantees the position if the person comes back, it doesn't talk about compensation. We have our own policies with regards to compensation and leave.
Okay, but I mean, in terms of maternity leave, isn't it 6 weeks?
It's 12 weeks, right? It's an FMLA.
It's an FMLA. Okay, well,
So,
sorry about this, but.
so we pay them for 12 weeks and then we don't pay them for the rest of the year?
Yeah, that's why I'm
Is
asking.
that the way it is?
I believe so.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
Lynn?
I support the leave. She's a phenomenal teacher. We're getting this notice in advance. She's having a child. I mean, I wish her all the best. It's going to be a loss to fourth grade for sure. I mean, she's a super strong teacher. I definitely support it. We know way in advance with the change in the structure of that building, there's going to be an extra teacher right now as it is. So,
What?
yeah, 'cause with sixth grade going down to 3 sections and fourth grade going to 3, right now we have 4.
Fourth grade's already at 3, so it's the extra sixth grade teacher.
Right, but there's an extra teacher in the LIS building. Because sixth grade,
Yep.
right, so now if Caitlin leaves for a year, there'll be the right number of teachers in that building.
Wayne?
Yeah, just had a little bit more I wanted to ask about.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay, so you have your 12-week FMLA, and then instead of returning for the coming school year, you have that year off. Now, I know we've done that before. I don't recall whether they were full years, part years, whatever, but I know we've done that before, so there's precedent there, and I think everybody's comfortable with it. My question is pertaining to the last request we had about a leave with the job held until they came back, that we denied.
That wasn't
Wanted to ask-
that wasn't a maternity.
Right, and is that the qualifier? Is that where we're at with that? And is that?
It was also open-ended, it was a couple of years.
No, it was
Well, I
just
just
a
want to
year,
make
wasn't
sure
it?
that we're consistent with what we're doing and understanding why this, and I get this, I know we've done this before, I'm not questioning that, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just saying in terms of the decision we made in the previous situation, and, you know, whether we can, I don't know that we can discuss it in open session, I don't recall, you know, where exactly we
I
discussed that.
think this fits under FMLA, and the other one did not fit under FMLA, and that was a distinction. So if someone was leaving, and I know we had this with a prior teacher who to take care of a sick spouse, that comes under FMLA.
Yeah, but they're asking for more than FMLA.
Right, the next year off without pay, but then holding the job when they come back. I'm trying to understand the difference between these that we do and that one that we didn't. Or maybe just to ask that, you know, the central office look into it and make sure that we're not, we're, yeah, sticking our foot in it, or, you know.
I don't think we ever did a whole year.
Yeah, the maternity leave's legislated, but that only gets you the 12 weeks, it doesn't get you the rest of the year.
I don't think we ever did a whole year.
Yeah, we
But this
have.
is requested.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Bryce's first year in this district, second grade, we had a full year of long-term sub. Definitely.
Are you looking to speak? Or are you just,
Do you want any help with the numbers?
That would be great.
That'd be great.
So the contract says that that you can't come back sort of mid semester. So typically, if you ask for an extended leave, your extended leave goes until January-ish or the whole year. It's sort of one of those two things that the board has decided in the past is the least disruption to the school day for kids. You absolutely have given leaves before for entire years that follow the traditional maternity leave. And I would just suggest that I believe that to answer Wayne's question, there was concern that that kind of leave would be replicated by other staff members. The request for that kind of leave would be replicated by staff members, and as I read the minutes, I think that's why you all decided not to grant that leave.
So then, is it fair to say then that under what we would typically do, since she would be out for the part of the first semester, that we grant the leave till January as opposed to for the whole school year?
No, sorry, I didn't. You
No.
have, if
What did
a
you do?
teacher has asked for the whole year, you've generally granted that, sorry. But if they say, like, I want to come back in October, let's say, a situation like this, or I want until Thanksgiving or something, you have said, like, no, it's either come back in January or come back for the next year.
Don?
Yes,
That's why I'm a little sleepy.
I don't know, I don't really understand what the policy is. However, I look at it this way. If the administration feels we have a teacher that's highly efficient and a real good teacher, if you give her the year off, that's not a problem. We could hire, if she leaves, we could hire another teacher who could come in and do a job that was not as proficient. And we would have this teacher, and we could have her for 3 years, or he. And it would not be up to the quality of this person. So when it comes to education, I'd rather give this person a year knowing she's going to come back. If that's the quality we want. And that's an administrative decision, not a board decision. So look at it that way, because you don't know what you're going to hire. In any profession.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Superintendent's report.
Just for the record, I did vote for the other one too, so.
I sent this to all of you on Saturday morning. Sorry, it was a little bit late. So I just wanted to kind of update you on what's going on as far as the board education goals. We, as administrators, continue our monthly walkthroughs to observe instructional practices, helps us calibrate. They've really become a valued part of our professional development and our alignment through K-12. Next Wednesday, we have an early release day. I don't believe there will be snow, so I think we'll actually get this one in. We are going to have some initial training, pre-K to 12 for instructional rounds, which you remember a core group of us attended a 2-day workshop in January. We're also going to be having some mindfulness training that has been postponed a couple of times because of snow. So we're doing a couple of different things. Julie's working on the mindfulness part to schedule it, so we're kind of scheduling around a couple of things, but we're excited to have the Connecticut Center for School Change come Monday night to deliver that training and for the collaboration with the Prevention Council for the mindfulness training. Screenagers was presented to students on Monday and to parents on Monday evening. Thanks to the Prevention Council for supporting that. And as you know, that went along with our comprehensive school climate inventory, where social media was something that stuck out as something to be addressed. Staff is going to, I just talked about the mindfulness training that's coming up. That also has to do with our climate and culture. And we're excited, some of those things have already been implemented in our buildings, but we're excited to get more people trained in this area. Our final district newsletter will come out at the very beginning of June. David talked a little bit about the email tip line in his update. Thank you, David. So we continue to try to communicate effectively with all of our stakeholders. And thank you to those of you who came to the town meeting last week where we presented our budget. There were no questions. And the next step is next Thursday night, May 10th, is the vote. So thank you for your support. I had a small group of people at Superintendent's Forum. Thank you to those people that came. We talked about, I asked for some feedback, and I'll be putting a quick survey out to parents before the end of the school year about different possibilities for early dismissals. As you know, this year was challenging with early dismissals. We ended up having to cancel school because the heaviest of the weather and the snow was going to happen right when we were transporting kids home. So some districts are moving to having emergency early dismissal time, so perhaps having the high school kids out at 11 and the little kids out at 12, gets them home earlier. So I talked to parents, they liked that idea. So I'll put something out to parents in a survey to gather feedback. We talked about power school, we talked about a bunch of different topics. Power school for grades 5 and 6, the school climate inventory, which we won't be doing again until next spring, although we will be surveying students and parents this spring about our action plans that we have been implementing based on the feedback we got from the National School Climate Center. And I think that was it.
Frank, finance.
We don't meet until Monday.
So you didn't have a meeting.
Yeah, we never meet. We meet on Monday.
I just wanted to make sure
Make
you
sure
said
Dane's out of the
properly.
record.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, please.
That's up.
Sorry, I didn't say it right.
Dwayne?
We met, I don't know, about a week ago Monday, or Tuesday. But we had a presentation from Mr. Fasano on the summer project schedule, as well as the capital project bidding schedule. There was some documentation that goes along with that, so if board members would like to see that, contact the business office, and I'm sure they can provide you with some specifics on what's going to be done, when, and so forth. Jamie Terry, I believe, was ill that evening, so we tabled the discussion on the fiber bid to another time. And under new business, we talked about the music department instruments and the grant, which we've already discussed tonight. We talked also about the we talked about the safety audit. Jeff got up and wanted to ask about resource officers, if we could do more to make the school safe. We had conversation without discussing the nitty-gritty, because obviously you can't or you don't want to put some of that information out in open forum about what you have done and how you've done it. But we did talk about that, and I think the consensus was that the previous audit that we had about 3 to 5 years ago, the safety audit or the Homeland Security audit, 2013. 2013. Okay, so that audit was still functional, and things have been taken care of, and more things will be taken care of, and they did not feel that we needed to have another one. We talked a little bit about the facilities mapping paging system, the panic buttons. That's kind of in process, talking about a timeline and thinking that it's not going to be high ticket items. They're not going to be big ticket items, so should not be a problem to incorporate that as we go along. School resource officers were discussed. I think there's some folks that support a presence or more presence, and some that weren't quite sure they supported that. I think one point that I tried to make was that it's not just about having a cop in the building, but it's also about having that presence for kids to get familiar with and comfortable with. And there's some other advantages that I thought were part of the school resource officer program that was in effect some years back. And then we also talked about transportation safety incident reports, not student incidents in terms of behavior or problems, but in terms of the overall performance of the drivers and interaction with students and so forth. And we discussed recent adjustments and changes to the
policies and procedures that were, maybe the regulation is a better word, in place as of the last 3 or 4 weeks, I think, that should eliminate any issues of misunderstanding. And then we talked a little bit about the ad hoc committee and so forth, which we talked about earlier. So I think that will cover it.
I just wanted to thank Katie and Sherry for the way they handled these fire alarm, the extra one last week. It's very impeccable and it's great communication as a parent or that member. There was a second fire alarm right after the test, so everyone was kind of freaking out and texting each other. It was done well.
Lynn, you've got what, at advance and
At advance in the CPP. So I'm going to start with CPP just because we have guests in the audience. So on April 12th, we had an abbreviated CPP meeting. We discussed basically 2 things on our agenda. The first one was the reading audit proposals, which we've already talked about tonight. The second one is the ASVAB proposal. So I can pass this along. This is my actual copy, and I have notes on here. But Jim Stradomski spearheaded this, and he's worked with Mark Hanaway and Dr. McCombs. So this would be a pilot program looking at kids doing the prep work to take the ASVAB. So this was actually educational for myself as well, because I only considered ASVAB necessary if you were to enter the military. But actually, there's a lot more benefits to the test. It's the foremost vocational assessment in the world, and it's nationally normed. It also interprets for students what they're best suited for careers. It would be up to our guidance department to take that interpretation and link it with their interest, with the student's interest, and then they can take that information and link it up to the Department of Labor to find out, okay, so based on what I'm really good at, what my interests are, these are the jobs that I should lean towards. And if you're interested in going to a military academy or doing certain jobs in the service, this is a test you have to take in order to get those jobs. So this would be a pilot program. Mr. Yanaway is going to teach this at Region 6 after school. The course, I think we were hoping to do it the first semester, but I think based on timing, it's going to be the second semester of the year. They're looking for 0.5 college credits.
High school credits.
High school credits. Let's see. The cost of the program is going to be around $4,500. And Jim's going to work on raising that money. And there's also a program that's developed by Pearson, which is they're basically the educational program. They're doing all the work on technology. But there's also March of Success, which targets weaknesses and strengths. So if you want to go into medicine and you want the military to pay for it, you might see where you need to strengthen your test scores, and hopefully this would help students do better. So I actually, even for myself, because I just talked to 2 recent college students that started 2 years ago, and they haven't done well in school and now are changing careers. You know, to be a physician or a nurse and you're not doing well in anatomy, in chemistry, and biology, that probably wasn't the career for you. So this college is too expensive to be spending time doing that. So I think there's a lot of benefits to this program. So I guess we're just reporting this forward so the board knows what we're doing to support students.
I heard something else, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
This course would help students with the ACT, PSAT, and other tests. Correct.
Yes.
So it's a training for them on how to take a test. You won't have to go there, you won't have to pay $130. correct. Because you would be getting it in class for some children. I thought I'd hear you say that.
Yeah.
It's a tremendous advantage.
Yeah, so I only see, except for the expense, and it's gonna be after school, so I don't know what the limitations on kids attending would be. That's the only downside I see.
I have a question. In terms of that and the coordination with Wamogo, I mean, is it something that we would also want to coordinate with Wamogo so our kids could take it there or here and vice versa? Depending upon scheduling, that might be another area to coordinate. Yes.
So this has been proposed to the Region 6 board, they've approved it. And we've talked about doing it either during the school day in conjunction with Litchfield in the co-op program, which we've talked about doing next year, or after school. We haven't settled on which of those two options would be the most readily available for students. You know, we want to get maximum student participation, so we could do it either way. You know, and the cost is based on a 0.2 position for a semester for a teacher at Wamogo's max pay scale.
Can you tell the board too about your, because I forgot what your rank was, but that you're a teacher, like a little bit about yourself.
I'm a retired colonel in the United States Army, served 32 years, 46 months in combat, visited 23 countries. Got a lot of benefit out of the military. I'd love to see other people have that opportunity.
So the class that you are talking about giving credit for, is it just in test taking and assessing where in a career you might fit, or is it something beyond that?
That is the
That's
entire
it.
purpose. So, you know, when you take the ASVAB, you're not committing yourself to the military.
But you're going through content as well
But you're going through
as,
content.
yeah, there's content as well as testing, because there's content in the test with the SAT.
Mr. McCone, speak ahead.
Hi. There's two separate programs. One is called March to Success. March to Success is a test preparation software. It does do ACT, SAT. It prepares students for the medical MCAT, yes. We're also preparing now, in June, we're going to launch for the DCAT, the DAT, for the dental assessment. There's entire courses on there for science, for STEM, entire courses in math, social studies. And so not only does it do a remediation and test preparation, but it also does acceleration for students who would like to go further for particular subjects. That's one thing, and that's the March to Success program. And I said Pearson, but it's Peterson, and I have to apologize. It's Peterson. The other one, test they were talking about is a test called the ASVAB. The ASVAB is the foremost assessment for vocational ability. So not only does it measure vocational ability, but also measures academic ability as well as the correlation between the ASVAB and the SAT and the ACT. In fact, some states now have adapted the ASVAB as a concordance score for graduation from high school. So if a kid didn't do well on the state assessment for graduation, they can use their ASVAB score, their GT score, and that GT score can be used as a concordance score for the ASVAB. What the ASVAB does, it measures students along 3 lines. First line it does is something that's called peer group. And this measures their competencies for anyone who have taken that test or a similar test between the ages of 13 and 24. So what it does, it measures them with everyone in their peer group that they're going to be in competition with. Then it measures them by grade and same sex. So now they're going to have an opportunity to see where they stand along these different vocational lines and academic lines with their peer group with their grade level and with the same sex, but it also measures them with the opposite sex. And this is pretty important information for kids who are looking to go into non-traditional career fields. Say you have a male who's looking to go into nursing. Now you can take a look and see where he fits in exactly with that female counterpart. Wonderful thing about it. I'm a retired assistant superintendent. I just got here from Florida. I'm now in this wonderful place here. And so what it does now, when they take these tests and you see these scores, it doesn't stop there. And it's not the guidance counselor who does the interpretation. My crew will come out and they will do the interpretation. All this stuff is done online. So now the scores from various vocations it's there. It's in this computer system. The next thing they do when they come in, they'll take an interest inventory. And so for some of these kids, it's the very first time they have an opportunity to measure, to compare their interests with their competencies. Hence, that person who's in medical, going to be a nurse and not doing well. Well, here's an interest. This is where you would like to be based on your interest. Then it also does. They'll have the interest. They have the competencies, and now they'll also have within the same system. They will have access to Department of Labor job bank. So they'll go right into the Department of Labor job bank. The scores are right there, and it will show them all of the civilian scores, the civilian careers that they can pursue, or the ones that they may need some work in. And the same as those thousands of jobs that's in that civilian job bank through Department of Labor, for those who are interested into going in the military, then they'll also be able to tap in to see the specialties that they're able to qualify for the military. And there was a mention about scholarships. You know, we have these wonderful scholarships that will pay 100% tuition no matter which school in the United States a kid chooses to go to, for something like reserve service, or where they're simply working one weekend a month. So these services, or these tools, will provide a much-needed service not only to students, but to families. I mean, I put 5 kids through college. And I can tell you, some of them need a little bit of remediation beforehand, and I have to pay $1,000 a month for a tutor. So you have to figure how many of your parents can afford that kind of money to have their kids get the type of preparation that they need to do well on these assessment tests. The SAT, the ACT, the dental school admission test, the medical school admission test. And so these programs are here for them free of charge. It doesn't cost the school district anything. It's all free. The interpretation from the ASVAB doesn't cost anything. Everything is done with the government providing the services for free. I do have some handouts that I brought on the ASVAB and on the March to Success, and I'll just leave them. And please take a look at them when you get a chance. It provides more information. But it's just, I mean, I can talk forever and ever and ever, and I know school boards are limited for time, but thank you very much for your attention.
How many kids in a class at a time?
Go ahead and answer that. I had something else.
Well, Mulder had 10 kids take the ASVAB yesterday. So we would be looking at a regular class size, you know.
You probably want to limit to about 30. 25, 30?
We go up to, I mean, there would be a limit. We've had 30 people take the ASVAB in a year. So that would be your interested group.
And is it meeting in a regular basis? Is it a weekly kind of class like every other class, or is
We
it a
foresee it
one-shot
being
deal?
a regular class. So, you know, the cost and everything is based on a block schedule similar to what we have now. So 90 minutes every other day for a semester.
And if I can just address your question of how much is assessment and how much is substantive. Okay, you're talking about probably 2 to 4 weeks of the assessment, the Dr. McComb's talking about. But what the March of Success does, which public schools really can't do, is it, based upon the tests and how they perform, it prepares a curriculum, a substantive curriculum for each child to help them, or each student, to repair in areas that they're weak or which they want improvement. So one student may be addressing mathematics, another one may be addressing writing, another may be addressing STEM programs. And what the idea then is at the end of the semester, when they go to take the ASVAB test, they will have, if they decide to take the ASVAB test, they will have improved to that point. There may be some students that say, we're going to take the SAT test, and they will improve to that point. There may be other students that it's simply, it's the first time in their lives they sit down and think about what they really seriously want to do for the rest of their lives, and what they have the capacity to do, and work over a period of a semester developing the disciplines that they need to achieve those things.
Thank you. I don't think it's a board matter. I mean, it seems to me it's an administrative curriculum decision. Am I
It was
missing
the
it?
board did talk about it, Region 6, so.
I understand that, but I mean, we don't typically decide what goes into our curriculum or what gets taught.
Well, I mean, there needs to be some kind of leadership, administrative support to let kids know that this is available. I don't know if we turf some of this over to collaboration meeting to figure out if it's being done during school or after school. Or, you know, turf it over to Kristen. I mean, obviously it would be beyond a board member, but I definitely, as a board member, I know I definitely support this, and I think we should do more work in letting kids know that this resource is available and what the ASVAB actually is. It's the first time I've ever heard about it.
So what you're suggesting is we ask the administration to look into how to put it into the curriculum and whether to add it to our curriculum here or to address it through the collaboration with logo or make it available to students there.
So the one caveat is, right now, we don't have the funding, so Jim and Mr. Yanaway are going to fundraise to get the $4,500 or whatever it's going to cost. So I think doing it together, just for a cost perspective, and you guys have 10 kids, we had even less than that, I forgot what Sherry said. So I think putting it together, but I mean, that needs to be done through somebody in the schools. I can't do it, you know, it's outside of my job description, but somebody in leadership needs to take leadership on this and be like, okay, this is what it is. I think there needs to be a component of educating parents too, because if I didn't get the education, I would be like, absolutely not. I don't want the military coming, I don't want them recruiting you. So I would be on the defense, but after the education, you can actually opt out of that and take the test.
I think also part of this should be some, desensitization about the idea of the military.
Right.
I mean, good grief, it's probably the one branch of government that's not being dissed right now. But at any rate, I think that, most people, as I was talking to the gentleman walking in, I mean, most people have an idea that this is like watching Hurt Locker or American Sniper or something. And it's not, it's jobs.
Right.
It's jobs and careers. And I mean, I know half a dozen young men right now who are in the military. One's a civil engineer and another is working helicopter mechanics. I mean, wow, So I just think we need to maybe educate parents and families and about what this really means. It's not just going into combat.
John?
I think the important thing here, excuse me, is to look at how we accomplish it. When something goes before the curriculum committee, we don't go to the board and say, do you want to do this? We give it to the administration.
That's what.
Yes, what you were saying, the administration decides, how do we fit this? And remember, this is not it's really an elective if you think about it. We have electives we eliminate, and if we have a chance at an elective that can help a tremendous amount of students, it's up to the administration to decide, is this appropriate to talk to the high school? Is this appropriate for children? There's the clue, right there.
John?
Yeah, no, I mean, to second David's point, every potential entrant into the military takes this course. And that's what takes the test. That's what determines whether you become an infantryman, or you go into helicopter maintenance, or you do something else. So if you want to think about the military has really good paid, college tuition, free way to get an education, graduate school tuition to go as an officer. It's a great program from that standpoint, and it's the way you place out of infantry if that's what you want to do.
Okay, so we're asking Sherry to do her job, which is, I think she would do anyhow, so. So Sherry and will meet with Kristen and figure out when and how, and understanding that the board supports this, to then figure out how to put it in.
Yeah, I think it would be something we would talk to the Region 16 collaboration team about, to see where they're going to put it in their schedule, to see how we can share that with our students.
Right. And if it, for whatever reason, it doesn't fit in our schedule, and there's a chance for us to, for any of our students who might want to take it at Region 6, that would work too.
And if Litchfield wants to do it independently, we'll raise the money for Litchfield to do it independently. If Litchfield wants to do it in conjunction with Regional 6, that's your choice, that's fine too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I have an advance.
Oh, okay, back to you.
So thank you guys.
Thank you very much for
Thank
coming
you.
out.
All right, so EdAdvance, so I'm
Basic
finally getting
aircraft
my
maintenance.
feet under me with EdAdvance. I see a ton of advantages to EdAdvance, even as we cut back on services. They're expanding because they're losing grant money, so they're expanding their services, their fee for service. They're trying to improve their quality. They're trying to talk to superintendents in the area to see what they need and to come up with resources to meet those needs. So I went to EdAdvance on April 5th. I don't know what this lady was talking about. So the first thing I'll talk about was snow days. So Jonathan reported that the Connecticut Commission for Educational Technology, CAVE, and CAPS are meeting and reviewing the policy implications of using the idea of quote-unquote digital snow days. The idea is that by using technology and prepared learning activities on a limited basis, education can continue on snow days. This is an idea that has been tested positively in Massachusetts, and Jonathan's working with the Mass Department of Ed. And if we're interested, we can join a pilot possibly for next year. So it provides, so during the presentation, it's up to 5 days, and I was just like, oh, that's a lot. I wasn't really supportive, but after going through what the program actually is, teachers would be available during the school hours. There would be feedback back and forth, especially with the kids with one-on-one. Obviously, that instruction is different for elementary school, but it was actually really comprehensive. And even if we weren't comfortable with 5 days, 2 days, if we set the end of school, we planned graduation, we had a crazy snow day in April, it would give us that flexibility to keep that last day of school and continue with our graduation plan. So that is an option that was discussed right after we had that conversation at board meeting. They're also working on an initiative with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. I don't have a copy of this, so you guys can pass it down. And this is the other advantage. There's also free things that they're doing as pilots, so this is one of them. EdAdvance is working on an initiative with the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. The center uses the power of emotions to create a more effective and compassionate society. The center conducts research and teaches people of all ages how to develop their emotional intelligence. It's for leaders of the school. It's evidence-based because they were looking at other programs and a lot of them weren't evidence-based, so this one's it's Yale, so it's highly evidence-based. And this was free, so I don't know if it worked out with your schedule or if it was opening. But that was another opportunity that they're working with. It was reported that EdAdvance recently, so they're offering a free service to local boards of ed. and that's on roles and responsibilities of Board of Ed members. Danbury District did it. One of the people who serves on the board from Danbury highly recommended it, and it was free, a free service offered by Ed Advance. So it'd be something that I think our board should consider. It doesn't cost us anything. And the last thing was mark your calendars for October 4th. It's the annual Ed Advance meeting at 4 p.m. Full boards and superintendents are asked to attend. And I think it's just a great opportunity because I'm able to meet with other board members at the monthly meeting to see what they're doing for data, to ask them what they're doing for textbooks, what they're doing for curriculum, and I could get a different board's perspective. And I'm just learning a lot there, so it was an excellent meeting.
But, and I have to say, I have been to those, the annual meetings in the past, and it's an enjoyable thing.
Yeah, so I'll keep reminding everybody about the meeting.
Okay, John.
Okay, so the collaboration committee met on Monday afternoon, and we, I think we're more towards the tail end rather than the beginning part of the registration process. Sherry and Kristen updated us in terms of the students from Wamogo who were taking classes here and students from Litchfield taking classes there. So in AP Bio, there are 3 Wamogo students who are taking the class here. In Latin 1, there were 5 students. Latin 2 was full here, so that kind of squelched that. In Latin 3, there were 4 students. So in total, there are 12 Wamogo students taking classes here. There is 1 student from Litchfield who will be taking Spanish 4 at Wamogo. There was a little bit of a kind of a mismatch here that we're hoping might be able to get caught up at the end of the year from the standpoint that because there was some uncertainty on the administration side of these classes were a done deal at Wamogo, they were not advertised in terms of the actual sign-up until, or they were made available, as I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Sherry, Kristen, but after I think it was a March 14 meeting, then you gave the green light to the guidance counselors to start talking about this, as what becomes available. And I believe there's going to be a meeting at, I'm not sure where, but between the Litchfield School administrators, the Wamogo administrators, and the guidance counselors in both schools on May 9th to really update them and kind of bring them forward on what's going on in terms of courses that would be available to either side. So I gather there is course switching that goes on all the way to the end of the year, so maybe we might get a little bit more reciprocity coming out of that. I think the transportation has been agreed in concept. David is working on a memo of understanding, as I understand that we're working with our attorney, and you're hoping that will get done in time for the Wamogo meeting that we're going to.
He emailed me today, said to be here by the end of the week.
So that part looks like, that will be going. So that's, that's where we are in terms of our, what's going on with Wamogo and Region 6. In the case of Torrington, there's a meeting that will come up between the administration of Litchfield and Torrington on July 18th, where we'll be talking about ways of cooperating in professional development. Most of us understand.
Yes, and the high school principal from Torrington will be there as well, and Kristen and I, and we'll talk about other things to collaborate on at that point.
And then we've talked about possible collaboration with other schools, be it on a continuation of what David's doing already in online food services. I think there's a prospect we're waiting to hear if all of our current partners may or may not sign up for the food services. I think there may be somebody else in the waiting if we don't have a full thing. So I think the feelers are out to other schools right now. Is that a good way of saying it?
I
We
think
have
we'll find
another
out.
joint meeting coming up with the Region 6 Long-Term Planning Board this coming Tuesday. And the other thing that I have to report, I was at a meeting this morning that was an hour meeting of the legislative subcommittee of the State Board of Education prior to their monthly meeting in Hartford. And the title of that meeting was Regionalization. And a bunch of the staff there talked about ways of schools sharing resources that had to do with either doing shared services that we're doing, regionalization, or they really concentrated on a cooperative, what's called a cooperative program. They talked about they chose the statute that exists for that, and they had the superintendents of Salem and East Lyme. And what goes on there is Salem sends their entire high school to East Lyme. They've had a 20-year agreement that they just renewed for another 20 years. And it's an interesting process because it does not actually involve 19th century Italian marriage laws, like do it once, never undo it. It's things that you can negotiate between the boards, and it looks, what these guys are saying is a very well received on both sides. And if you renew something after 20 years for another 20 years, you got to make something right. And I think the next stage, whether it's possibly the group retreat or some other time, is for us to talk about what our, kind of where we are at the board, how we want to move forward next in terms of this. I think that would be a good thing for us to have a conversation.
No, sorry, something else. It's totally off topic. I'm back at 16. Sorry, it's just what he was talking about made me think of something.
All right, David?
Policy committee had a wonderful meeting last night. So we brought back.
Policy's always wonderful.
What, how long was it? About 2 hours. Was it early? Yeah, it was gorgeous. We brought back the policy that I presented last meeting on limited authority, and we reworked it. I guess unfortunately it didn't make it into our packet for this evening, so I guess it'll have to wait until the next round. We also discussed a couple of other shorter policies that are a little more boilerplate. But it went well, it was a good discussion, and I think we'll have an interesting discussion when the policy comes to the board. Could I give one announcement?
Yeah.
I'm also on the scholarship committee. Okay? And I don't want to steal your thunder, but by the time we make it back here, it'll be over. The morning breakfast for the scholarship awards is on June 1st. And I think it would be nice if some of us were to show up, at 8 o'clock. And we've gotten an amazing, I got to tell you, if I have time, just a few seconds, what a wonderful experience it is meeting these stellar students, and additionally, meeting to discuss the further scholarship awards to the graduates who are already in college and working their way through it. Just some of the letters they write and the work that they're doing, it's just astounding. And just, being in the profession where I kind of get to see the other side of performance, it's been a real pleasure to serve on that committee.
Did you say June 8th?
June 1st.
You have to go, I can't, I'm not sure.
At 8 o'clock, June 1st, at the community center.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Done.
No,